Welcome back, Seekers. Today's story is about a man stuck in a lease with a lazy, freeloading roommate. But when he reports it, the landlord tells him to suck it up. Before we dive into today's story, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button. We're so close to our goal of 10 subscribers. And while you're at it, don't forget to like this video. Your support keeps me going. Thank you. Hope you enjoy the story. I've always been a pushover, someone who says it's fine even when it's not fine. Someone who lets people walk all over them because confrontation feels worse than just suffering in silence. And unfortunately, that's exactly how I ended up in roommate hell. I'm 24, and this was supposed to be a fresh start. My first apartment, my first taste of independence, finally out of my childhood home and living on my own. I was nervous, but excited. The rent was cheap, almost too cheap, but I wasn't in a position to be picky. That's how I ended up living with A, 26, male. A seemed fine at first. He was a bit rough around the edges. Big guy, tattoos, always had a beer in his hand. But I figured, hey, no judgment. As long as we respected each other's space, it should be fine, right? I couldn't have been more wrong. The first few weeks were okay. He didn't seem like a terrible person, just messy. I noticed little things, dirty dishes piling up, trash never being taken out, food crumbs everywhere. But I thought, maybe he's just busy. So, like an idiot, I picked up the slack. I washed the dishes, took out the trash, scrubbed the counters. I even cleaned up beer cans he left lying around. And that was my first mistake, because the moment I started cleaning up after him, it became my job. Suddenly, I was the one doing everything. The bathroom, my responsibility. The kitchen, my problem. The floors, my mess to clean up, even when I wasn't the one making them dirty. And the worst part? He didn't care. I'd be scrubbing the sink, exhausted from work, while he was sprawled out on the couch, beer in one hand, phone in the other, watching YouTube videos at full volume. Did I say anything? Nope, because confrontation? Scary. Then came the food. I was meal prepping to save money. I'd cook a big batch of food for the week, store it neatly in labeled containers, and plan out my meals. Simple, right? Wrong, because he apparently thought shared apartment meant shared groceries. It started small, a missing slice of bread, a can of soda disappearing. But then, one night, I came home starving, went to grab my meal prepped food, and found the entire container empty. I stared at it, dumbfounded. I knew I hadn't eaten it. So I turned to my roommate, who was sitting on the couch, picking his teeth. I asked, "Hey, did you eat my food?" And he just shrugged. Yeah, I was hungry. That's it. That was his entire explanation. No apology, nothing. And me, instead of yelling or demanding he replace it, I just mumbled, "Oh, okay." Spoiler, it was not okay. When we first moved in, he told me he had a job. I figured, cool, at least he's working. But over time, I realized I never saw him work. His work schedule sleeping until 2 p.m., playing video games, drinking, and watching TV. His important meetings, him yelling at teenagers in an online game, his long days at work, non existent. The man did nothing, and yet, somehow, he always had money for beer. I don't even know if he was paying rent. Maybe his parents covered it. Maybe he was living off government assistance. I have no idea. All I knew was that I was stuck living with a freeloading gremlin who contributed absolutely nothing. One night, I got home after a long, exhausting day and found the kitchen destroyed. Every single dish was piled up in the sink. Grease splattered on the stove, beer cans everywhere, a half-eaten pizza sitting on the counter, congealed cheese dripping onto the floor, and him sitting on the couch, drink in hand, doing nothing. I swallowed my frustration and asked, "Hey, can you clean up the kitchen?" And do you know what he said? "I'll get to it later." Later. That was it. That was my villain origin story. But did I snap? Did I scream at him? Of course not. Instead, I cleaned it up myself, like a complete idiot. That night, I lay in bed, stewing in my own misery. I knew I couldn't live like this. So the next day, I went to the landlord. I explained everything: the mess, the freeloading, the drinking, the noise. I told him I couldn't deal with it anymore. And do you know what he said? "Yeah, man, he does that. Just suck it up." I wanted to scream. Everything made sense. No wonder this place had cheap rent, because no one wanted to live here. The landlord knew he was a terrible roommate. He knew people wouldn't last, and he didn't care, because I had signed a lease. I was trapped. One more year, a whole year stuck in hell. I thought about confronting my roommate directly, telling him to start pulling his weight. But here's the thing. He wasn't just lazy. He was intimidating, big, muscular, covered in tattoos, and always drinking. I didn't know what he was capable of. What if I told him off and he snapped? What if he got aggressive? What if I made my life even more miserable by challenging him? I had no idea what to do. I felt trapped in my own home. So I did what I always did. Nothing. I just sucked it up. And now I have 12 more months of this nightmare. Well, seekers, what do you think? What could he have done earlier to prevent this? Please subscribe and leave us a like and a comment if you loved our story today.